Yo, 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 what's going on, guys? It's Buns, and welcome back to the Road to Gladiator. Tonight, I'm going to break down Ellie Shaman damage rotation in a PvP setting like arenas. Now, this is going to be different than those of you guys that are looking for something from PvE. I'm using my PvP talents specifically, which are very different from PvE, and the style is a lot more single target than it is complete AoE, like in a dungeon situation where you're just trying to maximize your overall efficiency. This is going to be specifically for doing effective damage in arenas. Now, one of the first things that we really have to start with when we're talking about Ellie Shamans is Ellie Shamans are very sporadic. And a lot of the reason why they are sporadic is because of a lot of procs that there are available on Elemental Shamans. So I want to take a couple seconds to break down and talk about a few of them. The first one is Elemental Focus, and your spells that crit increase the damage of your next two spells by 10%. So let's just say I crit on an Ice Fury, or I crit on a Lightning Bolt. My next two spells that I use and my next two heals are going to be increased by 10%. This is a modifier that's there and it procs very often, especially having high crit and comboing it with our Totem Sky Fury, which is going to give us 30% crit when we drop it down. You're going to see a lot of Elemental Focus, and you really want to make sure that you're getting the most out of it and being frequent with it. Now, another proc that you're going to get as well too is Lava Surge. Now, this is extremely important. I'm going to build this in when I'm talking about your Flame Shock damage. Now, why don't we start there? Your Flame Shock damage in PvP is usually going to be between 1 and 2. Sometimes it can be 3 depending on how short the game goes or depending on how you're focusing your abilities. But basically what you want to be focusing on your Elemental Shaman is making sure that you have Flame Shocks up on all 3 targets and pets to really maximize not only the amount of pressure that you're putting on the enemy team, as it's a very strong dot for you, but it also gives you instant proc Lava Burst, which is part of Lava Surge. So if I have this up on 3 or 4 targets, I'm going to give myself more chances to reset the cooldown on my Lava Burst, get instant procs, and do very efficient instant cast damage because of that. Also keep in mind too, a lot of the time when you're playing in arenas, healers are going to dispel. You need to kind of keep track of that and keep that in the back of your mind that you may have to go back and refresh your dots. One thing that I like to do is I like playing with nameplates. That way I can see who my dots are on at a glimpse of an eye. So maybe I'm not targeting them, but I see the target's running by, I see that he gets dispelled and my Flame Shock throws off. Then I can put on a new Flame Shock up on the target. It'll help you out, get your procs, and get your damage up high. Flame Shock should be between like 1 and 3 for your overall damage, usually between 1 or 2, depending on how long the match goes. And then finally, the last 2 things we have to talk about is your Elemental Overload. I talked about this earlier in my damage talent breakdown. For those of you guys that have not seen this, I did a breakdown video talking about my talents and honor talents that I use in 7.1. You should definitely check out this video. Very helpful for any of you guys that are wanting to maximize and jump into this damage rotation. You want to make sure you're using the same talents that I am. Now, your Elemental Overload, when you are using your Lightning Bolt, Ice Fury, Chain Lightning, and Lava Burst, they have a 42% chance to trigger a 75% other spell that will double on top of it. So if I go in and I use a Lava Burst, let's say for 100k, there's going to be a second one, if it procs, that's going to hit for 75k, and it's going to give me 75% of the Maelstrom back, which is also really good for us rotating through our spells, having a lot of Maelstrom to use our shocks efficiently. Now, the last thing that we should talk about as well too, especially in PvP, this is very relevant where we're spending a lot more of our damage and our time doing single target burst, especially on our Shaman with Stormkeepers, Ice Fury. We're trying to land pressure kills in arenas. Elemental Fury is huge on this because it gives us an extra 50% damage when we're going in for crits. Now in PvP, when we're critting with spells, it's 150%. So this actually raises it back up to that 200% threshold, which is really nice for Shamans when we're going in, whether or not we're doing instant cast damage, single target damage, our spread from our Flame Shocks, or even healing our teammates. It just gives us a little bit more oomph when we do crit, and that's super helpful for the build of Shamans. Now, let's start where we were. One of the best things that you're going to want to do and make sure you're going to prioritize when you're playing your Ellie Shaman is you're going to want to make sure that you have flame shocks on multiple targets. So if I was in an arena setting right now, we have our 3 targets, and we want to make sure that we have flame shocks in all 3. Now you can see that I'm already getting proc. So this is a trinket proc from PvE. This is my elemental focus. And you see I get a lava surge proc. And it's important to keep the flame shocks rolling on 3 targets because we're going to get way more procs doing so than if we only give ourselves the 1 target that we're hitting. Keeping that spread pressure is very important, and unless you are in a situation where it is really not optimal to dot the healer, you should be dotting the healer, and you should try to be keeping track of that. It's very helpful to do so. You're going to get more damage, you're going to get more pressure, and more procs off of that. Extremely helpful when you're playing Elemental Shaman. Now, also going off of this, I want to make a note about a PvP talent, and I was touching on this earlier as well too. Sky Fury Totem is insane. Now we're in a PvE setting here, and I just showed this so that we could easily go through and talk about the damage. I could sit down and break it down and give a great breakdown on how everything works without having to like pull and pick clips from all over the place that are not going to be as focused and direct, I guess. I felt this would be a much more direct way of doing it. So in a PvE setting, we don't have Sky Fury, but when we're in a PvP setting like arenas or battlegrounds, Sky Fury Totem is huge. We're going to give 30% crit to everyone within 40 yards. That's massive. And one thing that you absolutely want to keep in mind is when you're using your Sky Fury, you're going to get massive value saving it and lining it up with your Stormkeepers, especially if the team is stacked up on top of each other. Now, while we're talking about Stormkeepers, I want to talk about one more proc that Ellie Shamans have available for them, and this is coming in their artifact tree. Now, this is Power the Maelstrom, and Power the Maelstrom, when you cast a Lava Burst, you have a chance to trigger a proc on your Shaman where your next 3 lightning bolts will automatically trigger Elemental Overload an additional time. So the reason that I talk about this now and bring it up, after talking about our Flame Shock build, we have Flame Shocks on all 3 of the targets. We're getting Lava Surge procs. We're going to be getting a lot of Lava Bursts off. We're going to be getting Power of the Maelstrom procs, and it's extremely important when you are trying to line up maximum damage kills with your Stormkeeper. If you're going to go very hard single target, you want to try to line up a Power of the Maelstrom proc with your Stormkeepers, with your Sky Fury Totem, and really maximize the damage. So if you go in and you get your Flame Shocks up and you're looking to cast Lava Bursts off, we'll end up getting a proc that gives us the Power of the Maelstrom. What we're going to do is we use that, combo it with our Stormkeepers into the target, and then our Stormkeepers is going to guarantee give us huge damage. So you can see here I have my Power of the Maelstrom, which is going to give us extra cast on our lightning bolts. And when I go in, now is an opportunity for me to go in, massive burst, drop my Stormkeepers, drop my Sky Fury, use my Stormkeepers, and now when we're hitting the target, single target, we have that extra proc. Not only is this doing more damage, but look how much Maelstrom that we already went through as well too. It's a lot of burst Maelstrom, a lot of burst damage, and when you want to go for a kill and you know it's going to be single target, it is beneficial for you to use lightning bolts into that target rather than chain lightning. Now, if you're playing against a melee team where the enemies are stacked on top of each other, you want to go in with the mindset usually that you're going to chain lightning. Now, this is good against melee teams that are stacked on top of each other, but this can also be very good against certain classes like Warlocks where they're summoning pets, or BM Hunters where they have also a lot of pets around. The more the merrier, the more benefit you're going to get from your chain lightning. And in these kind of situations, we're probably going to want to use our Stormkeepers for a chain lightning. Now, this completely comes down to how many people are in the area. Are we going to be breaking CC? Do we have a proc for single target damage from Power of the Maelstrom? For you to make that decision of how you're going to use your spell when you have your Stormkeepers up. So, if you want to go single target, you're not trying to break CC, make sure you have Power of the Maelstrom up to get those extra lightning bolt procs off when we're using our Stormkeepers and go single target with lightning bolts. If the enemy team's stacked up, we're also playing with Lightning Rod. Now, with Lightning Rod, it benefits us to go AoE and use our chain lightning because we're going to have a high chance to get that extra damage from our Lightning Rod centered onto the main target. So, if you really want to maximize your damage during a Stormkeepers, you want to make sure that you have Lightning Rod up on a target before you actually use it, especially when you're going to go for Chain Lightning. It has a massive deal. So, if you are knowing that you're going to preemptively use your Stormkeepers, try to spend a few spells preemptively setting this up, right? So I could chain lightning to melee DPS and get my main target to be the lightning rod, because they're going to take 40% extra damage from all of the chain lightning and lightning bolt damage that we do, right? So I get my main target, get him lightning rod, they're going to take 40% more damage, and if they're all stacked on top of each other, now is my opportunity to use my Stormkeepers, drop my totems down, and then go in with the chain lightning, hitting all of the targets in the area and benefiting from having that lightning rod, additional 40% damage. It is massive damage. For those of you guys that want to see the potential of this damage, you should check out this video right here. It's a quick video I made a couple of days ago, just absolutely blowing up a Death Knight in like 2 globals. It is insane how much damage you can get extra for having lightning rod up, and this is something that if you know going into it, this is preemptively something you can do to give yourself way more damage in a burst situation. So another spell that's really important and you can combo with Sky Fury as well too is our Ice Fury. Now you should try to be doing this when you're using all of your spells, but on our Shamans, as you guys can probably see, all of our shocks have Maelstrom modifiers, and if we're at the top end of our Maelstrom modifiers, it's going to do more damage. So when I have full Maelstrom here, my ice shocks are doing maximum damage, and these are PvE numbers, so I'm getting higher numbers than you would in PvP, and the crits are going 250% as opposed to 200. But you guys get the idea that you're going to max out your damage by making sure you have enough Maelstrom. To finish off this conversation talking about burst here, it's also important for us to remember too, we want to be using our Stormkeepers and our Ice Fury at times where we have a coordinated push, right? Even though a lot of our damage as elemental is going to be sporadic, it's going to be a lot of instant procs, we're going to have a lot of things refreshing, and it can very easily feel like we just want to use Stormkeepers and Ice Fury off cooldown. Ice Fury is a 30-second cooldown. You can use that a little bit more freely, but we need to make sure when we're going in for hard kills on the enemy team that you really want to try to line up your Stormkeepers with your Sky Fury, and as well as it works as well too, to use your Ice Fury as well too during that window, so you give yourself as much instant proc damage when you're going for a kill. Now I want to show you guys something as well too here really quickly with both these spells. So if I go ahead and I use both these spells, you guys can see that Ice Fury has a 15-second timer and Stormkeeper is a 15-second timer. So this is really important when we're talking about setting up our burst, because we want to make sure that we're spacing out and giving ourselves enough time to actually be able to use it. So in this situation right here, I use both of my charges and I work through using my Maelstrom to make sure I have enough Ice Shocks up so that I can get the full benefit of using all of my Maelstrom. So when you're setting yourself up to have these single target kills, you want to preemptively think, okay, I'm setting myself up for the kill. Do I have procs up? Do I have power of the Maelstrom up if I'm going to go single target with lightning bolts? Do I have lightning rod up on the target if I'm going to go more AoE? Am I giving myself the opportunity to set up and get my Ice Fury out, to get my Skykeeper up, my Stormkeeper up, and my Sky Fury totem? We want to do as much preemptive setup as possible and coordinate with your partners to maximize the amount of burst that you can do during short windows. So this is something that I myself all the time am working on, and it's going to change every single game depending on what comp you're fighting, what map you're fighting, and it's going to be different. Some teams you're going to have a harder time, you're going to get locked down, whether it be a Warlock using interrupts into you, whether you're getting trained by double melee. It's going to change and you're going to have to adjust depending on what you're fighting and what you're playing, but these are the thought processes that we should be running when we're looking to maximize our damage burst windows. And it's important to get in a good habit of doing this, as you will more likely get kills by maximizing your efficiency, not only by yourself of what you're doing with your own procs, but with your partners as well too. Now that we have burst out of the way, let's go back and talk about more overall damage. So usually in a damage in an arena setup, you're going to have your maximum damage be Flame Shock, which you can have on all targets. And another damage that most people probably find really surprising is actually your Fire Elemental. Now, 7.1.5 is just around the corner, and currently how this ability works is Fire Elemental is a 5-minute cooldown, and you call down your elemental for 1 minute duration, and you can do damage with it on your main target that's hitting into it. Now, next patch, this ability is getting halved, and that is a massive, massive buff. it's going to be 2.5 minutes on a 30-second duration. And you might be like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. It's getting halved completely. They're just cutting the cooldown in half, but you don't have it out as long. Why is that a massive buff? Let me show you something in your guys' artifact that maybe you guys haven't caught yet. So, when you're in an arena right now and going into next patch as well too, this is going to be very important to start incorporating into your gameplay. Your fire elemental does a huge amount of damage for you, and you absolutely should be using it as soon as you're going to start doing immediate pressure onto the enemy team and get pressure rolling, because we have this artifact trait in our weapon called Elementalist, and each time that we're using our lava burst, it's going to take 2 seconds off of that cooldown. So currently right now it's a 5-minute cooldown, and getting through that actually does already happen in arenas, and using it right off of the bat gives you an opportunity to quickly get it a second time. You frequently have this happen during arenas. It's not something that is very difficult to get with how many procs we have up, keeping our flame shocks up, and instantly working through our lava burst. This is something that you can work through and get up multiple times during an arena already right now with a 5-minute cooldown. This getting halved by 2.5 minutes and putting on a 30-second cooldown is actually a massive buff. I think that there's a very good realistic chance that you have very, very, very high uptime on this, where like you would cast it with 2.5 minutes, you end up getting 30 lava bursts off, and you just end up taking a whole minute off of that while it's working through the cooldown anyway, so you would only have like a minute to like 45 seconds to actually wait for it to come up again. I think that this is a massive buff that's going under the radar going into this patch 7.1.5, and it's still relevant now in patch 7.1, so I wanted to bring it up and talk about it. Make sure you are using your fire elemental early in the arena to help you get efficient damage off. You'll usually see it in that 2 or 3 spot for overall damage in the arena. Now finally, the last spot that's between 1 and 3 for you in overall damage is going to be your ice shock. So with that being said, that goes and talks about a little bit of our burst and a little bit of our consistent damage. Ice Fury is the spell that kind of falls in between. When we use our Ice Fury, it's a 30-second cooldown. It buffs our next 4 Frost Shocks by 400% damage. Now, this is something that I usually do not hold on to for very long, as it does a ton of damage for me in the arena, and it's a cooldown to shove, not sit on. But there can be situations where you can sit on this and be, okay, I want to save it up for a little bit of burst here. I'm going to combo it with the Stormkeepers. I want to get my Maelstrom up, and that's completely fine. But I think more often than not, the great thing and what Ellie Shaman brings to the table is instant, constant pressure, and holding on to that ability for more than like 5 seconds is probably not going to behoove you for the overall pressure in the match. You want to shove out Ice Fury, get the most out of it, try to drop down your Sky Fury with it. If you can line it up with your Stormkeepers for big bursts onto a target, that's going to be huge. But don't feel like you have to sit there and wait like 20 seconds for your go just to use your Ice Fury. That's a lot of downtime, and it's a huge part of your damage. You want to keep that rotating through all of your cooldowns. So when we're getting into a fight, we want to make sure that we have all 3 targets dotted up. We're going to get procs from our spells, and it's going to buff our spells and healing by 10%. Having all of our Flame Shocks up is giving us Lava Surge charges, which in turn is giving us more instant cast damage that we don't have to sit and stay there and worry about. Now, keep in mind, when we're using our Lava Surges, we can get Power of the Maelstrom procs. This is a great time to go down, use our Sky Fury, use our Totems, use our Stormkeeper, and put single target damage into the target with our procs available, maximizing our damage. Now, finally, another thing that I want to talk about as well, too. We're going to be spending and using a lot of energy in arenas, or Maelstrom rather. We're going to be using a lot of Maelstrom and rotating it through very quickly. This is also an important thing to remember when we're using our damage. Earth Fury stun is huge. It's extremely disruptive. Most of the time you can use it for interrupts, and it stops people from being able to play the game. Extremely disruptive. When you are using all of this Maelstrom working through your burst, also keep in mind, you want to be spending this Maelstrom as well too. Use it to get that interrupt on the target. Be disruptive. A lot of the time as well too, what I will do is if I'm playing against a caster, sometimes I will even use it on the target that I'm not hitting. Let's say that I'm going on a DPS target and the healer is trying to get off a heal and I don't have Wind Shear up. I can use a Focus Earth Shock onto the healer to actually stun him in place during my burst, and then switch back and use the rest of my instant cast damage onto the main target. You can also use Earth Fury to set yourself up for hexes. If you have 100% Maelstrom, use 100 Maelstrom on a healer, and then go into a Hex. This is a great way to give yourself an opportunity to get CC and jump the target, and then finish off your main target by continuing using spells onto him. Absolutely make sure that you're keeping track of this. It's a very disruptive spell and can help you out for interrupts or for lockdowns on your main target or on the healer or other targets to prevent them from being able to play the game. As a final few reminders, guys, when we're playing as our Elemental Shaman, it's extremely important as well too to make sure that when you're going into a match, you want to make sure that your totem mastery totems are down. You're going to be getting a lot of overall benefits from having this up, from not only your mastery procs to just general haste, to also making sure that your flame shock damage is increased over time. Lots of benefits for keeping these totems up. You want to make sure that you have them up, spend the global to use it. It's going to help out your overall damage. On top of this too, we want to make sure that when we're spreading our flame shocks, we're going to be getting a lot of lava burst procs. And as I said earlier in this video, it's important to go back and refresh those flame shocks on the target. Healers are going to dispel. You need to go back and put up more flame shocks back onto the target to make sure that they are dotted, as you're going to get a lot of procs off. And finally, to combo with that too, Lava Burst is going to do more damage for you than a Lightning Bolt will, or Chain Lightning as well too. So when you're getting a proc, or if you have no proc at all, you can sit there and cast it, make sure you're using your Lava Burst, and really make sure as well too that the target is Flame Shot, because it will always crit when they do have that Flame Shock on the target. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I got a ton of requests to do this video talking about the overall damage rotation in a PvP setting, and I know for a lot of you guys out there, there are a lot of PvE guides out there, but it's with a lot of different talents. It's not quite as relevant to the PvP scene, so I really wanted to sit down and talk about how we can use our spells to efficiently do great damage in arenas and also set ourselves up for burst opportunities to really maximize the overall potential of the Elemental Shaman. Make sure to leave a thumbs up on the video and a comment down below, guys. I appreciate all of the support. I will catch you guys on the next video or during the live stream in the afternoon. Peace! Later, guys.